Do you have those days when you feel great at the start? You're kind of on top of your game, you're ready for the tasks of the day, only to find an hour later that you've been deflated and you're ready to go back to bed? How do you transform so quickly from that successful eagerness feeling to that loss and heaviness? Today we're talking about energy vampires, those people and situations that can zap the life right out of you. Can you imagine how empowered you can be with the right tools in your hand and the ability to foresee the challenges coming your way? My guest today, Clancy Cox, was with us in season 2 and helped us understand our voice and our power to speak. And today she's sharing her shift in focus from vocal coaching to empowering people to speak and to support themselves with their voices and their actions. You may remember that Clancy is an accomplished soprano performer and coach with a long list of performances and collaborations that showcase her divine talent. Clancy Cox has lived in several parts of the US over the years, and she calls the state of New York home now. After a car accident that left her with chronic pain, Clancy found her answers to healing with yoga and voice. Today, Clancy is extending her expertise with the voice to help us navigate the energy vampires that can drain our joy for living and take down our energy, leaving us feeling depressed and maybe even despondent. You're listening to Be Well with Michelle Greenwell. This is sponsored by Dance Debut Inc. and the Cape Breton Tea Company. And I am so happy to welcome back Clancy Cox. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Before we begin our conversation, I'd like to set the intention for our listeners always with an affirmation to kind of get things in motion. And if people have goals, they have the opportunity to set that goal. So as they're listening to the podcast, they can actually have a balance and bring things into flow for themselves. And I know because of what we're doing in our conversation with voice today, they'll be weaving through all of that kind of frequency and lifting that you offer people. So I'm going to pull up the affirmations. So I'm just showing for those on the podcast, it's the front cover of my card deck, Affirmations for the Body and Biofield. There's a baby and child ribbon of color on the front. And that little piece helps us to know that we're held and supported at all times, but also that we have the opportunity to support others. And it's a great way to think about how when we bring in an affirmation, we can also support ourselves. So I have here, this is funny because sometimes these cards repeat themselves and I always cut the deck for what do we need today. I'm not choosing the card. So this is for the 11th chakra, left foot. There we go. And it says, step forward into your future. All you need will be provided. Movement is medicine and the path is clear. And I know we're doing voice today, so that is movement. And that movement of the voice and the sound is going to provide a great opportunity. And the piece about the left foot is energy comes in on the left side, exits on the right side. And so we have this opportunity today as you bring us through your conversation, how we're going to bring in change. And then just to remember, let it go out the right side so we don't hold on to it, but the opportunity to build and hold on. So, yeah.
I love the visual of that card. How can I find your cards?
They're on dancedebut.com.
Okay.
You can find it right in the shop. And what I didn't say, just as you were saying about the colors, is the colors on this one for those on the podcast, just remembering that you can't see, I'm holding a card up, but you can see this has like mottled kind of orange, yellow, green, red, blue, white, pink, purple. It all just kind of flows in rainbow colors and it's a swirl. And the cards are actually photographs of nature that have been run through filters. Ooh. And then they've also been infused with different aspects. So when I was talking about the 11th chakra, it's all of the characteristics of the spiritual aspects of the 11th chakra and what it means in the left foot. Energy does come in, but there's lots of other things that goes with it. Yeah. Thanks for asking about that, Clancy.
Yes, they seem profound. They seem like a good way to start and end the day. Just
yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah. Or during those hard times too, that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So now to bring things into action, we can do that with a cup of tea. And so always inviting people who are listening to please take the time. If you're busy driving, listening to the podcast, we know you have to have your attention somewhere else. But if you have the time to put on a pot of tea, sit down, relax, and listen, then we invite you to take the time for yourself. What have you packed for today?
Well, I had my tea earlier this morning, and right now, I'm drinking protein. It's coconut milk,
Mhm.
warmed up with a protein powder and collagen and ohm mushroom powder. So they're
Mm,
one that is it's lion's mane. So it's supposed to support the nervous system and the brain for
awesome.
memory. So yeah, and this mug is actually it's made by David Norton. He is a potter who is also a family friend, and so I love it. And it has this in the handle. It has a little divot for your thumb, so it just fits. It fits perfect.
Perfect. And then
Yeah.
just again, for the people on the podcast, what happens for a lot of the people that I have on is everybody hugs their mug, right?
Yes.
It's it's a way we really do give back to ourselves in how we hold that mug and how we engage with it, which is fascinating. And you want to describe the colors on it? Because again, for those who
Oh,
can't see.
yeah. And what I'm told is that this is sort of a mystery, when the potter does the glaze and the overlaps, that they don't really know what colors are gonna end up being created in the kiln. So there's a lighter blue, there's this triangle of orange overlapping with a more acute triangle, and sort of a, I don't know, dark indigo, uh, and and brown. So yeah, just the way they overlap
Yeah, it's
gives me
really
joy to
interesting.
look at.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right about the right angles.
Uh-huh.
And, sacred geometry, there's a lot that can happen with the kinds of symbols that we can work with, the ways that we can bring those in, and the way that we can look at things.
Mm.
So it's nice, then you can put your hand around that mug. And
Yep.
you have a lot going on there and with color as well. So for people to realize the mug can be very important and how we prep things, bring it to the fun. So what I did is I took one of my teas. So I have the Just Chillin' tea.
Oh, it's
Um,
beautiful.
and I made it into an iced tea today. I thought I'm going to just celebrate the fact we're moving into summer and that tea can be iced. Most teas can be iced and they're beautiful without adding any sugar. This one, for again those people listening, it's like a golden amber color. It's a beautiful color, and this
Hmm.
is a black tea that has cranberry in it. So it's just got a little bit of that tanginess to it. And I've got it in a Celtic glass. So I've got my Celtic trilogy symbol on it. So body, mind, and spirit. And also the weaving that happens in life. And then I've garnished it with a lemon today, which was kind of fun when I was cutting it because I was like, oh, here's that little piece of sunshine to add to the top of the glass. So lots of fun what you can do with beverages and the way you approach the food and the beverages that are at your table. So cheers, Clancy. Thank you for joining me. It's so great. I'm looking
Cheers.
forward to this.
Me too. Yeah, that lemon is beautiful. And the glass, everything.
Yeah. Oh, it's lovely. I've been drinking all winter, but moving everything into an iced tea now, it's really fun to see what I can produce. All
Yes.
right, so we are ready to go. So let's decide how we want to get there. Do you want to tell me first of all what shifted you from the last time we talked into thinking about and working with those energy vampires that approach our days?
Yes. Well, um, I I think it's important to come to some consensus about what terms we'll use, both to maybe describe ourselves, and to describe this concept of the energy vampire type of person. And I'm trying hard to acknowledge that the humanity, of this spectrum and wherever you fall on it, and not create an us and them kind of thing, which is difficult sometimes. I find myself in my language falling into that us and them, because there is this sense of possibly, we talked about triangles in a drama triangle where you have a perpetrator, a victim, and a rescuer. There can be these polarizing ideas of, well, who's the perpetrator and who's the victim? I personally don't like to imagine myself as a victim. I don't like that word. But there is, we have to have some kind of consensus as to what's going on here. And so I think of it, that the energy, I like the term energy vampire. Other terms that you can use for that might, and one that's really big right now in the writings that are happening and just in pop culture is narcissistic abuse. I'm trying to not use that because it's diagnostic and I don't have those letters after my name. I also think it really creates an us versus them thing, about something that is a personality disorder. So that's kind of tough. And I think what it all comes down to is how your relationships are affecting you. So we do need terms to be able to describe this. And I just want to say, bear with me, because I don't want to overly simplify anything. These things that when they're personal, when they're happening to us, they don't feel simple. So on the one side of things, there's highly sensitive people. Sometimes they're introverted. Sometimes you can have extroverted people who are highly sensitive. So highly sensitive people, caregivers, fixers, people who, are just overly giving of their energy. And what else? Empaths. So there's a lot of terms for the type of person that is the person that I feel like I can help by sharing some hard-won knowledge. And then the other side of it, is a high conflict individual. So HCI is the acronym for that. And I'm trying to get away from narcissist, borderline, those kinds of diagnostic terms. One term I really like is an Algonquin word, wetiko. And it is describing a mind virus, basically, that makes you greedy, makes you not connect with when something's enough. So you can think of it in, this Algonquin word. So this idea of a cycle, a gift, when it came to fishing and salmon and things like that. And then the colonization and, the canneries where, things are overfished and there's not that cycle of giving back and temperance and being connected. Mm-hmm. There's just taking. So that idea, I really like the word wetiko, but I think for right now we'll just use energy vampires. So back to answering your question of this shift. I worried that it might seem like, she's taking these really disparate things and trying to connect them, but I actually think they're really connected. So it's ironic in a way as a singer that I have trouble, and always have, speaking up for myself using my voice. Mm-hmm. So, and it's necessary. Another big thing that I'm so excited is being talked about more, written about more. There's more and more information and access and interest in boundaries, and how I really like how Brene Brown says that, clear is kind. and unclear is not kind. And so boundaries are there for, for relationships that are important to you, and you need to keep yourself safe and you need to communicate. And it's not always easy to communicate. And not all of us had great role models at creating, communicating, and defending boundaries, right? So I've just been devouring books about boundaries, about linguistics, how to communicate clearly, the syntax of communication, the tactics of verbal abuse, how to recognize them, how to name them, so that you're not just in a relationship that's completely confusing. You know what your feelings are, but how do you name what's happening to you? And so all of it can kind of go back to childhood conditioning stuff, how you are able or unable to set and communicate boundaries, I think goes to really deep childhood stuff. So the chakra system is incredibly helpful in identifying what's going on underneath those initial emotions. What's happening? Where have I experienced this before? How old was I? How do I take care of that childlike part of myself? And how do I get present to what's actually happening now, instead of all of these deep childhood things that are being triggered by whatever is happening now? So I guess I'm trying to go back and answer your question, but I guess that I've reached a certain point in my own healing where I'm really ready for that. And it's scary to say, because something is coming when you say to the universe, I'm ready, but I feel that I am ready and I am hungry for the next step in my personal evolution, my spiritual evolution, and how I show up in the world. So that third chakra, solar plexus, I'm ready, and I am being tested in my boundaries and in aligning my values to how I show up in the world. And it is placing me out of my comfort zone and into a place where I really have to recognize the vampiric relationships in my life, and I have to decide what to do about them. And I see a lot, all through COVID and probably all throughout history. I'm developing a theory, and some of it is based on the work of Elaine Aronson, who came up with the highly sensitive person acronym and did a lot of research. So she's a PhD, and her work is based on research about highly sensitive people. And then also this other research that's done on, this spectrum of lack of empathy. So, on one end of it, you have your actual sociopaths. And then on the other end of it, you might have someone who's just not very sensitive to other people, and it's this whole spectrum in between. So there's this idea, and it is based on research, that there's about 20% of the population that you could say is highly sensitive, empathic, really connected, kind of can go into a room and really read the dynamics and really feel like, oh, someone's really sad, and can have a gut intuition about why. So there's about 20% of the population like that. 20% is on that spectrum of lack of empathy. Then you've got 60% in the middle. You're normal people. So I think this is fascinating, this idea. And I think you could even say, perhaps we evolved this way back when we were hunter-gatherers. Maybe there were survival benefits of having in your tribe of, 60 people, 20% are sensitive, thinking about the future, thinking about how the consequences of actions, so there you'd have your seers, right? And
Hmm.
your shaman in that group. And
Right.
then the 20% lack of empathy, well, you'd want those guys, as part of your tribe. If you were in a warring tribal kind of situation, you would want that. And you
Hmm.
would want the 60% in the middle who are affected by these. What I see, and really saw during COVID, is that the sensitive people, the people who never got a break, so your nurses, your teachers, the professions that sensitive people go into.
Hmm.
Also, you're behind the scenes people. You're people setting up stuff at church and cleaning up and all of the behind the scenes stuff. People who aren't necessarily looking for personal glory, uh, you know,
Hmm.
um, people who are content to be behind the scenes making things work. They got tired. If you have empathy and you feel connected to people, something like the pandemic will really tire you out
Hmm.
because you don't necessarily know how to stop giving your energy. So, what I've noticed is the people in my life, and I love my sensitive people, and I consider myself in that group. They are tired. Your social workers, and you can see it in terms of people sort of forewarning of crises in fewer and fewer teachers. I mean, the burnout rate for a new teacher is within 5 years. So even those beautiful pensions and all of the promise of, your 30-year career as a teacher, it's not keeping people in because
Hmm.
we don't know how to protect our energy. We don't know how to deal with the trauma that the children are presenting to us. So that's not good, when your bright, shining, empathetic people who are going into the teaching profession cannot be in it for more, they don't even make it to 5 years on
Yeah.
average. That's a problem. So, and nurses and the medical system. I mean, it's pretty wild how many people are choosing to be traveling nurses as opposed to working where they are. And that's a lot of stuff that I can't get into. I don't know enough, but I just know anecdotally there are things happening that are not sustainable. And I also think that our culture is really rewarding the behaviors that are lack of empathy, that show lack of empathy. And you can see it in, who gets paid, who's making money versus who's doing the real work.
Hmm.
And so I just began to see in my personal life, so microcosm, but also macro, that the balance of these 20% on either end is getting out of whack. And that has huge ramifications for the environment. You were talking before we started recording about the fires in your area. So fires have always happened. It's part of nature's way of, weeding things out, so to speak, so that new growth can happen. But I think that we're experiencing things that have to do with an imbalance, right?
Hmm.
Um, and and just looking at yeah, how people make their money. And I don't know how this is where you live, but I know that in the US, there are real problems finding labor in areas where there haven't been before. And of course, this is a complex issue. We've got immigration, we've got all kinds of issues, but it's really interesting. I hear people say this same phrase: people just don't want to work. And I disagree with that.
I
I think
agree with you.
if
Yeah.
you look at where the shortages are, it's in the service industries. It's not that people don't want to work, but people do want meaningful work, and they don't want to be abused at work. And if you look at the industries, so teaching and teaching shortages, food service, farm work, all of these places with their shortages, you have to deal with other people. If you think of my parents run a bakery and they're having major shortages of labor, it's the people who have to deal with the public.
Yeah.
And I've also heard people say, oh, well, COVID, the bottom fell out of our basic decency and manners and politeness. I don't know. I don't know if it was COVID. I grew up working in my parents' bakery and dealing with how people treat service people, food service people, anybody in service. And, the free feeling of people to make comments about my body and just all kinds of stuff, and of course I'm a sensitive person. Maybe if I was in that 60% of more normal people, it would just roll off my back like, water off a duck's back. But I don't know, because I'm a sensitive person, maybe that stuff got to me more. Or maybe it shouldn't be okay to make comments about people's bodies, I don't know. But yeah, so that's what I'm seeing, is that I want to support that population of more sensitive people to find a hopeful way of dealing, viewing our sensitivity not as a weakness, but as a strength. And that ability to really, really feel things strongly could be the key to balancing between these parts of the population. But we have, some serious work to do to be able to verbalize what we see, what we hear, what we feel. But I just see, I see the work of Brene Brown in terms of leadership, in terms of going into companies and consulting about why things are breaking down. And I really think it all goes into balancing these two sides in a way that respects the strengths of each. And I just feel that things are kind of out of balance. They're out of balance in our court system. And that actually is probably my most salient point in going back and answering your question, is that I had my own experience in the family court system that I was unprepared for. And as a result of that, I ended up working with a paralegal company remotely, helping them provide their service, which is incredible. They have a proprietary software that they will process communications between two co-parents and label each one with the behaviors that they see in the language, in the way that they're treating each other, and in the way that they're working together or not working together. And then they put it all in a timeline. So you can actually see who is seeking solutions and who is creating and escalating conflict.
Wow.
I saw dozens and dozens and dozens of these cases, and it's wild when you can actually visualize it. So it's incredible. It's qualitative to quantitative data.
Yeah.
And I am very passionate about it. And yeah, this company is amazing. Does the court system do what it should do with this information? That's another topic for another time.
Of course.
But what I saw is that you can change the names and it is the same behaviors.
Mm-hmm.
You just change the names. It all started to look like the same stuff over and over again. And that has been quite an education, because when something is happening to you at home, at work, or in your family, where you're a sensitive person and you have an energy vampire relationship in any of those realms, it feels very personal. And almost by design, you feel like you're the only one going through this. And that also is how, a lot of child abuse is perpetrated. The child thinks, I'm the only one that this is being done to. And they feel so scared to, maybe they don't have a trusted adult in their life, but even with the trusted adults, I think they're worried that they'll strain that relationship, or the trusted adult will also, betray them. But a lot of us are going through things like that as adults in our place of work. So, and the reason that it works is that you feel alone, you feel isolated, and by design, the tactics make you feel confused. And so your prefrontal cortex goes offline. You actually have been robbed of your ability to make a decision about the future. And so you go into that freaked out little kid place where you're in your limbic system, right? You're straight emotional. So like you mentioned earlier, the nervous system, an understanding of the nervous system, that fight, flight, freeze. There's so much shame, I think, in the freeze response, even though that is a perfectly viable survival response. And you don't have that much control over it. When you're in the moment and your boss is yelling at you in front of other coworkers, you don't have access to your prefrontal cortex and your decision-making part of your brain. So I don't know. I hope I've answered your question.
Well, you actually weaved through a couple of interesting ideas. One is the ability to use those affirmations that we started the podcast with. Because if you start your day with the affirmation, the intention, the goal, however you want to name that, and however in depth you want to take that, you have this focus that sets you up for your day. So that when you do have that situation where you may not be able to consciously come up with your ideas because you go into the fight or flight motion of it. This is the second thought that I thought was so beautiful. You go into the fight or flight motion, which tells you how brilliant your body is. That's the key. Sometimes because that shame piece, right? You think that because you got there, you don't cope very well. But actually, your body is so brilliant, it supports you in this way that allows you to stand and be present. And then by the opportunity of bringing those affirmations in and understanding where you want to go, the situation then transforms from what the other person wants of you by the way that they're behaving with you to the place where you go, this fits with my ideas, or this does not fit with my ideas, because you've already determined that before they even come to you. So it's a different way of thinking about intention, and I never considered that. So you really opened up, because I know how valuable the affirmations are. I use them all day. I might formally start my day that way. I might not, but it goes with all that I do. So throughout a week, I can have many different ways that I've engaged with it. But for a lot of people, they might not. And they get up, they start their day, they go through their routine, they go to work because their goal is to work, make money, come home and have a life. But you also have this opportunity of the quality that you want with that and the way you want to engage with that. And you can set all that up if you take that time to have a cup of tea and hug the mug and really think about what it is you want to do. Yeah. Thank you very much, because those insights of the tools that I use are there because of the way I did my research, but also I had never brought it to the way that you've worded and phrased everything. Beautiful.
Oh, well, and yeah, what you have just said, I mean, I can personally attest that my morning routine has been life-changing. I have a specific, not very long, I start my tea boiling, and I do 3 sun salutations. Each one of them has some variation. And then I go over and I pour my hot water on my tea, and then I go and I meditate. And halfway through, I do a little spin, so I switch which leg is on top. And then I look at a card. Right now it's a Teachings of Abraham deck, and it's a wonderful way to start the day. So yeah, reading that and just sitting there, and that could be something that guides my whole day. And yeah, whatever happens later that day, like you said, you can view it in light of this thing that you've read and what you think about it. And I think it helps give that tiny bit of space between what's happening, what's coming at you from the outside world, and then choosing how you want to respond to it. Sometimes, like I said, it's not a choice. I might just freeze. This happened to me a couple weeks ago. I actually ended up writing my very first blog post, my very first, published blog post about it, because it just seemed really important to me to forgive myself that in the moment, something slightly shocking had happened, where someone had invaded my space and tried to touch my face at church. And that's not welcome to me. And I just thought, I was so upset with myself that I didn't, raise my voice and just say, step back, sir. Replaying it in my mind over and over again, what I shoulda, coulda, woulda done. But it turns out it's not in my nervous system response to do that. When someone invades my space and does something that I think is, at best impolite, and at worst, very dominating and kind of scary, I go into freeze mode. And like you said, what a beautiful flip to say, my body knows what to do. There's some kind of wisdom there, and it's deep, and it has to do with survival. And so, yeah, the blog post was, exploring that and just saying, okay, if I can't in the moment say all the things that later would be the perfect comeback or the perfect way to deal with it, how do I deal with it now? Instead of being flooded by the emotion itself of feeling shocked and feeling invaded, okay, so look at what happened. Look at the actual, facts of what happened. Look at my feelings that are connected to the facts, but feelings aren't facts, right? They are what they are. And then what have I done in the past in my life when similar things have happened? And what will I do now? What will I do now? I can make a different choice now. And so what my choice was to write a letter. And this goes into the services that I am offering people who find themselves in this same situation. My service is one of communication and one of a process. So it's a 3-step process. I call it the name it, tame it, and reclaim it process. And it has to do with the situation that caused, anxiety, feelings of shame for how you did or didn't deal with it. And how do you just take those little steps to start to feel better? So instead of being stuck in, I'm the victim in this triangle, there's a victim, there's a perpetrator, and I wish someone would rescue me from it. You kind of step out of that. You step out of that and say, well, what will I do? What would my highest, most wise self tell me to do? Or if I am reparenting myself, if this were happening to a 7-year-old child, how would I help that child navigate through these feelings in a way that will help them be more resilient later, you know. So I just made an assessment of myself, okay, ideally, I'd love to, in the moment, be able to defend myself verbally and make myself very clear. But because I know I'm beginning to really learn about my nervous system, I think that will happen. That will happen eventually. But instead of waiting around for the hormone changes and the wisdom and all of the things that need to happen to make that less scary to me, I wrote a letter. And so my process is, first you write it and you just let it all hang out. This letter is not going to be sent anywhere. You might burn this letter afterwards. You probably should. But you talk about your feelings, you talk about why it's wrong, you talk about everything. And then if you have time, hopefully you do, you just set that aside and you express those feelings, right? And then for the one you're actually going to send, if you decide it's safe, because that's a big thing with boundaries, is, like you said, your body has wisdom. And if your body is screaming, yes, everything that happened is so wrong, but standing up for myself actually puts me in a more dangerous position, then you know. I guess that for me, several things over the years have been happening with this person that tried to touch my face. And so I just realized I'm an adult. If this were happening to my child, I wouldn't be just waiting for it to change or go away. I would actually be, putting something out into the world that is asking for a behavior change. So I don't think in this case it's a dangerous situation, but I do want to say, if you feel like it is, probably is. So I'm not advocating that everyone just, start doing what I just did. This thing has been building up for years, and I have the support that I need to work through it now. But anyway, yeah, so I wrote a letter and I took out all of the emotional language. And I just made sure that I was representing facts. On this date, this thing happened. On this other date, this other thing happened. When these things happen, I feel violated. I feel disrespected because my personal space is not being respected. And I ask for a behavior change. And that behavior change is that please stay 6 feet away from me. And that was my letter. And it was really scary to actually certify that letter and send it. But I did it because I don't want someone's behavior to rob me of the things that are good. I sing in that church. I love the people I sing with. I love the experience of it. I love the organist. I love the music director. There are so many things, and I don't want to be robbed of those things. So I'm choosing this example because it's it's tangible, it's recent, and it also is not the most profound or scary thing that I've had to deal with in this realm. But it's approachable, it's understandable, and I actually took action on it. So yeah, so in terms of this process, I named the behavior that was bothersome to me in a factual way. I took out, tame it means tame your own reactive, why this triggered you. So respond to the thing as it is and not all of the deep things from your past. So understand that and work through it. It's so important to be able to release it, to understand it, work through it, go backwards in time. But then realize what is it? There's this phrase, if it's hysterical, it's historical. So the word hysterical is a bit too loaded, but what I mean by that is if I'm having an outsized reaction to something that has happened, it's probably because of something in the past that is not healed. So if it's hysterical, it's historical. I just take that as a message to myself. I'm not calling anyone hysterical. I think there's wisdom in our feelings and why we have them. Yeah, but you do want to tame that. You don't want to come to a current situation bringing the baggage of the past, because that will just be used against you, you know, and we can see that in the way that court handles things, in the way that, you know, hundreds of girls, the doctor who had abused all the gymnastics, Olympic gymnasts, you know, one person in their family would not have made that happen. It was literally hundreds of women had to step forward before this was addressed and stopped. I mean, it's horrifying. So you can see how the hysterical woman idea gets treated. And then there are, you know, and then there are some people who are hysterical and are not bringing the facts. So it's really, this is difficult, right? This is really difficult that, yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to think about. And so because of those things, you want to be able to tame your reaction. And I actually don't mean stuff it down or dismiss it in any way. I just mean by writing that cathartic letter with all of your feelings about it, you know, that's sort of addressing, and there will be gold in there to see why this thing is upsetting, is so upsetting. So it's very valuable to let it all hang out. It can be stream of consciousness. It can be however you want, but just be prepared, you know, never send that one. Never, never send that one. And probably, you know, shred it or burn it in a ritual, you know.
Yep. Let it lighten. Just to let it lighten.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
And yeah, to acknowledge your feelings and to acknowledge the anger and to acknowledge that little kid that things have happened to. Yeah, so I don't recommend stuffing anything down, but dealing with it in a way that helps it move through your system. Also, a wonderful nervous system idea, you know, so we have the fight, flight, or freeze, but what about returning to the parasympathetic, right? Where the blood can come back to your digestion, you know, where so many health issues begin. Yeah, letting, you know, that you've got to get rid of the adrenaline somehow, and then allow yourself to come back to a stasis. And it's happening so much that we don't know how to do that anymore. So the adrenal fatigue and all kinds of mysterious illnesses are connected to never giving yourself a break from this feeling. So yeah, so you write your letter, and then you rest on it for a few days, and then when you go back to it, I highly recommend taking out anything that is feelings, anything that is not factual. And to do that, you have to come to what you really want. You know, and I decided that what I really wanted in this scenario was I want there to be room enough for me and this person. And I don't want to try to control anybody's behavior. You can't, for one thing.
Exactly.
You can't. But you can set a boundary and request a behavior change if things keep happening and happening. So my solution was, you have to have a measurable solution. That's hard. It felt very spiky to say, I would like to request that you stay 6 feet away from me. That felt very spiky, but honestly, I think it's reasonable. I feel that is reasonable. There's no situation where that shouldn't be happening, in fact. So, yeah. So naming the facts, but also naming tactics. Whatever the behaviors are, the reason that they're worrisome or bothersome is that the aim or the effect is an emotional manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's my mission. When I look at the population and the 20% on each side, my mission is to support the sensitive people to become immune to emotional manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we are immune to emotional manipulation, we can protect our energy. So what I'm seeing now with the exhaustion of the people who care, that's not going to be good for the balance of things that has to happen if we're going to survive on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
And bring things back into, an environmental balance.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, what I can do is support people. I can name those tactics. And I can help people name the tactics. And so, are you familiar with the work of Bessel van der Kolk?
No.
Oh, he wrote The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes.
Psychiatrist. Yes. And he says, to heal, you have to be able to feel what you feel and know what you know. And when you don't have the words to describe what's happening to you, when it's unspeakable. And to children, of course, it's unspeakable because they don't have the language yet, and that's why it's so important. When my child was young, I was reading so much about, developmental, milestones and what to do and how to help them, handle their emotions. But one of the most important things you can do for a child is to witness their emotion and say, you look frustrated, and then, describe what frustration feels like, in your body or, a time you've been frustrated, so that they feel seen and they can mirror that. So there's amazing research that's been done about, when children can express themselves verbally, say, I'm really mad, they're less likely to bite other children. It's the children who are biting are often not having the language to say what they are feeling and deal with it that way. So it comes out in a way that's really unacceptable and scary. So again, reparenting ourselves to, I feel this way. And that feels like this in my body. That's a huge part of healing from all kinds of trauma. And I highly recommend to anyone watching or listening Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. It's wonderful. And it's research backed things for things that sensitive people know intuitively. But I love that it delivers the goods, with all of this research to say, oh yeah, it makes sense that you feel that or that that, because here's the research that shows it. It's wonderful. And then, reclaim it is deciding how you're going to respond instead of taking the bait, basically. The bait that has been laid out for you in a tactic of emotional manipulation. If you take that bait, you will feel ashamed of your behavior. You will have acted out of alignment with your deepest values, because in that moment, you didn't have access to your prefrontal cortex. you acted out of survival and you engaged, and now you're giving the energy vampire the energy that they want from you. They don't care if it's positive or negative energy, right? They care that you've engaged, and the fact that you've engaged tells them that they have the control that they crave, the control and power. It's about power. And it starts a cycle. It starts a cycle. And so in order to break that cycle, you've got to know how to name the tactics, how to look at your own reactions to those tactics, and then claim the space that you need to be able to figure out how you want to respond. So that space that you create with your morning ritual, with your tea, with meditation, with the affirmations, when you think of your affirmation as a lens to view a situation where someone is acting out dominating behaviors towards you, and you read your affirmation, that will be a beautiful clue as to, well, how do I feel about that? Yeah. So reclaiming it is reclaiming how you're going to respond in a way that is in alignment with your values. And that can be in person. For me, I've realized it's in the written word, because in person is very scary to me, and I'm still working on that to feel safer, to feel safer in my own bubble, as I deliver my response. What I've noticed about myself is that I have a story running through my head, which is that if I vocalize my boundary and set my boundary, the person that I'm doing that with is going to behave badly. That's the story that I have in my head. And I know that's deep, and I know it's from way back. But yeah, that just being able to say, oh, that is the story that I expect escalating violent behavior when I set even a reasonable boundary. That's scary. But you know what? Look at our culture. Look at what's happening. Look at the fact that the leading cause of death in pregnant women in the US is being murdered. That's horrifying. So I didn't do this. This isn't this isn't paranoia. This is the way the culture is, and there's facts and research, and it's terrible. But, so what if we learn how to be immune to emotional manipulation before we're in dire straits? What if we learn to recognize when someone's going through something like that, and how to be supportive of them in a way that doesn't put them in more danger? Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. But when I filter it down to where can I be of service, this is it for me. This is it for me. How do I teach people this 3-step system? And I offer one-on-ones to do that. I'm also working on a course that should be available come September for people who need to work through it on their own, perhaps in secret. Because if you are in relationship with an energy vampire who also could be violent, as soon as they know you're changing the dynamic, that's when you are in danger. So this is really serious work. It can be life-saving work. And I am hoping that it is work that will, it sounds very Pollyanna-ish, but that will have ripple effects out
Mhm.
into, beyond our families, beyond our, our churches and our schools, and into our communities and into our overculture.
Mhm.
And it really does start with how you are going to reclaim how you respond.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about that space component. And it's just interesting talking about the nervous system and thinking about um, our fight or flight and looking at its value, because you are right. We have really devalued it in a way that I didn't respond well enough because my frontal cortex wasn't working right. No, the whole system went into the position it needed to go into, because if your brain was thinking about all these other things, your body's ability to stay safe would have not been there. But the opportunity you have afterwards, we refer to it as monkey thoughts and trying to get rid of your monkey thoughts. But sometimes in those situations, to be able to go back because you went into that fight or flight, it's like time slows down. And you need the time to slow down so that you can find the space in the time where you have the position to be able to look at, in this part of the time, I could respond in this way or this way. In this part of the time, I could respond this way or this way. Those are the monkey thoughts trying to, well, I wish I had have done this. I should have done this. No, you sat back and you were in the learning phase. You're in the phase of really understanding how you need to speak and come forward, or how you need to react, or even listening to the cues that your body's getting and starting to honor those cues instead of saying, oh, I froze. Yeah, you did freeze, but what did you notice before you froze? What did you notice before the situation even came to be? And then starting to take those pieces and really reflect on what that means, because it's always lovely to say, I should have. But that situation's going to come around again with a different person in a different time in a different situation. And your opportunity to say, I have been here before. I recognize this cue. And then you go, and I also thought, here's how I would like to respond the next time that occurs. And then you're already there, but you can't do that in that moment. And if you did, you would never be able to have a resolution of thoughts, because you would have reacted with the emotional outburst, and
Right.
that would have led you to a different place. And then you'd just be in a bigger regret. So the opportunity to actually be frozen in time, and then to be able to say, what are the gifts of that frozen time? And I'm thinking about, I had in my dance teaching career, running a studio, I have had several altercations with dance parents over the years where we've not agreed on something. And the first time, it was like, that was like my second year of teaching. And that's it, I'm done. I can't do this. I am leaving the profession. I'm finished. But then I had to think myself through it. So I said, the next time that happens, I'm ready. And of course the situation was never the same again. But the second situation came around, and I had, here's what's going to happen. And so I responded in one way, thinking it would be the right way. But of course, there's different parameters, different people. And it was okay, but it wasn't the best way I could have responded. But I learned again. All right, I responded this way this time, but it didn't quite produce what I wanted. So when the third time came around, we're across decades. Because it's not that I had this happening all the time, but these are really outrageous situations. But in that third one, I did exactly what you were saying, which, that hand going up, I cannot have this conversation right now. I am willing to book an appointment with you later this week, and I'm happy to sit down and discuss it with you, but I cannot do it right now. And I came home and I went, I'm for those people listening to the
Yes.
podcast, I'm licking my finger and I'm putting it up there, and I strike for me. I actually stopped time and said, I need my space. I have to think about this. I have to get my emotions out and know how I want to respond. And when we both come in, we have the opportunity to sit and have that discussion.
Yes.
And it was hard, like you said, right? It's hard to sit and do that because I wasn't writing it down, because I would much rather have written it down. But writing it down didn't work the first 2 times. So,
Ah,
when I got to the third time, I had already walked myself through those vocalizations and that writing skill and the ability that by the time I did get to that third time, I was in the position to say, I now can voice what I want to say. I know what I'm willing to offer. I know what I'm willing to receive. And then I could put it in place. So yeah, it's such a process, but that space is so valuable. But today I'm really appreciating looking, and I was saying to you that, I've been studying and working with the nervous system through my Movement Made Easy class, and really honing in on tiny aspects of it and energetically connecting with it through movement. And I know that's going to sound way out there for some people listening at the moment, but it's really bringing balance and flow to the body, but doing it through the lens of the nervous system is how we've been doing it. But you've really given me the opportunity to look at that fight and flight, at going back into our most instinctual pieces and honoring the incredible wisdom that is sitting there for us, that usually we don't listen to because we're referring to it as the lesser parts of ourselves. You go into your back brain, and the back brain is only good for these things. Or the emotions that happen in the amygdala, which are linked to that back brain, are these, instinctual pieces. And it's like, yes, they are, but they are our greatest wisdom.
yes.
Joy and passion and flow, those are things that get to happen after those instinctual expressions have had the opportunity to guide us and provide us with wisdom.
Yes. Yeah. And yeah, I just want to say, like, the shame and the monkey mind that happens after a situation, where, I wish that I had handled it differently. Those are, I think, I haven't come across a phrase to describe this. Like, I've heard people say secondary emotions. Um, but I'm really discovering this difference of the emotions that I believe are conditioned, by family of origin, childhood experiences, and our overculture, versus what you're describing, those deep instinctual, the deep part of the ancient part of our brains, like the wisdom of that. So yeah, separating, um feelings of obligation and guilt
Mhm.
and shame, those are not the ancient brain, right? Those are not survival. Those are cultural, and those are childhood conditioning, um, and family of origin, right? So just being able to name those
Mhm.
is so important. And yeah, reparenting, oh, I see. I see that I'm feeling shame about freezing in that situation. Well, the reason I feel shame about that is because only one response is glorified in our culture, and that's the fight response,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is glorified. Um, but that's not always going to keep you safe. In fact, a fight response with the wrong person at the wrong time could get you killed,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, so this it's just really important, I think, that the grown-up, wise, higher self part of yourself talk to the part of yourself that's feeling those, obligation, guilt, shame. All of those emotions, those are the emotions that a clever emotional vampire will use
Mhm.
to control you
Mhm.
and to
Mhm.
keep taking your energy. So, and when you've got an emotional vampire taking your energy, do you have any room for your morning routine that keeps you balanced? Probably not. You're
Mhm.
probably tired. You've probably got addictions popping up because you're not able to restore your own energy the way you normally would with a walk in nature, with movement, with exercise, with singing, with being with people. You're not, because an emotional vampire knows. I love this term. Christiane Northrup wrote this in her book, Dodging Energy Vampires, which is another resource I can wholeheartedly recommend. Wholeheartedly. There's a few things in it I don't necessarily agree with, but there's really good information in there, especially if you're first coming to this concept of, oh, maybe I'm more sensitive than the average bear. And, maybe because of my good qualities, I'm being targeted because I'm a great target. I think the best of people. I give people chance after chance. I consider things from many different angles and give people the benefit of the doubt. Oh, you better believe that energy vampires will love that. They will love someone who gives them 1,000 strikes instead of 3.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And so the phrase I want to share from Dodging Energy Vampires is that energy vampires have a malignant intuition about what your inner child wants to hear. So during that phrase where they're sort of grooming you, testing you, putting you up on a pedestal so that you're vulnerable to them, they have a malignant intuition about what your inner child wants to hear. They also have a malignant intuition about how to manipulate you using whatever triggers your inner child. So if it's feelings of fear, there's a great acronym, FOG: fear, obligation, and guilt. And that is a tactic to trigger those feelings in somebody. And it's a form of entrapment, really, because sensitive people are usually very nice people. And there's usually a story that, it's not nice to set boundaries, and it's not nice to say, no, I'm not available for that. But we have to learn how to do that. An empowered, highly sensitive person, an empowered empath, is a force of nature. I mean, the good that an empowered empath that has boundaries can do in this world is, they're just unstoppable. But we have very few good role models. So that's another thing I hope to do, is instead of every person reinventing the wheel with their own healing process, after domestic violence or even, workplace stuff that happens, instead of reinventing the wheel, I want to offer all my hard-won wisdom and to keep offering resources to people, so they're not starting from zero. They're starting from, someone who's 10 years out, That's what I'm hoping. Yeah.
And a thought that pops into my mind as people are listening, and this is not, this will be a simple tool, not to belittle any experience that people have, but a way to bring forward those monkey thoughts and bring out opportunities to shift thinking. And sometimes it's not a hard situation, it's just a small one, and you just need that little bit extra. And sometimes you have to replay it in a crazy way so you can stop the monkey thoughts. So some, like, and I think of, like, if someone were to fall, and you hurt yourself, and then you think about, if I had not stepped on that rung the way that I did, then I wouldn't have fallen. And then this person has a fear of climbing the ladder because they fell the last time. But in order to change that, you can change within yourself the way you think about it. So when I fell, I didn't land on all the rocks that were underneath there, but I actually create a pillow of marshmallows. And so I'm climbing up the ladder and I've fallen off and I land in the marshmallows. And when I land in the marshmallows, it's actually bouncy. Now you can see I'm going really outrageous with it. But if you put your fingertips on your forehead while you're doing that outrageous thought pattern, the body and the brain thinks that was the reaction. And so the emotional stress release points, by just holding the fingertips on the front of the forehead, allows the body to process through some thoughts. And even though they're outrageous thoughts, it's a really lovely way to transition yourself from, I shouldn't have done that, into the body just thinks it's resolved. And you landed on a marshmallow and, everything was lovely. And now the ladder is no longer a threat. So it's one of the tools that I've used, and a lot of times for performers, because there's so much that happens on stage that you cannot control. and you have to go back out again. You get a lot of performers too that get scared of the audience. And it's just all those reactions start to build up over time. And then there's so many ways that they've blocked in these reactions. So to be able to go out there and imagine this crazy audience and fingertips on the forehead, you have this ability to take those back brain to front brain opportunities and process. So I just share that because that kept popping up in my mind as you were talking. And I was thinking, okay, obviously there's some importance that needs to come there.
I love that, Michelle, because part of my in-person workshops is EFT. Mm-hmm. It's EFT because at one point I thought I was going to be a consultant for people going through high conflict custody and divorce to help them navigate the court system and communicate properly. And when I started getting those clients, I just realized they are still in the stressful brain response where they are actually addicted to the abusive behaviors of their energy vampire. And I was not equipped to help them with that. I could give them all the good facts and all the good resources out there and endless hours of support, but they needed healing. Right. They needed healing. And so that's what I've done with these workshops, is just, what can I give people who are going through a very stressful time? What can I give them? I can give them a few concepts, but actual experiences of, it's okay to come back to your body. Mm-hmm. It's okay to come back to your body. And EFT has been extremely helpful with that, where, for, like you said, touching your forehead, well, those are some of the tapping points too, right? Mm-hmm. So tapping, identifying the one thing, one measurable thing, one situation that's really bothersome, and then tapping as you talk about it, you talk about that thing. And it really does. It moves it to a different place where you can be, again, that space, that idea of the space comes up. Mm-hmm. You can be a little more objective with this horrible thing that, 10 minutes ago made you so angry and made you want to react in a way that's totally out of alignment with your values. And, what is it? There's this phrase, I'm going to let God handle this one, because if I handle it myself, I'll be in jail. Something like that. I saw it on a coffee mug and I thought, that's good. Yeah, this idea of creating that space so that you're not reacting in a way that, would have real consequences. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the tapping and guided meditations where you actually take the tendrils of your attention, back into your own body, so you're reacting from a place inside your own body instead of outside, which is where you are being tempted and baited to come out. Mm-hmm. There are very particular tactics. And whether the energy vampire knows they're doing it or not is up for debate. But when you're the person it's being done to, it really doesn't matter. whether it's premeditated and intentional on their part or not, the effect on you is the same. And so you have to decide what you are going to do about it. You are not going to control their behavior. So, what are you going to do about it? Well, you don't want to make that decision from a place where you're out of your body and dissociated. You are going to want to make that place from the wisdom of your body. So that's what I've discovered in my own healing and in the tools that I want to offer people is, how do you get back into your own body so that you can have that space with which to make good decisions and the courage to move forward with them. And the discernment with, maybe moving forward with them makes you less safe. And so you decide another decision, but, putting yourself back in the ability to, receive wisdom and move from that place is huge. And for the experiential part of today, I thought we'd go through the chakras and naming what some of the energy vampire behavior might feel like in those chakras, and sort of the MO of the energy vampire when they're trying to get at that part of you. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a vocalization here, and then just kind of thinking, just an internal questioning. So sort of part chakra balancing, part vocalization, and part guided meditation.
Sounds beautiful. I'm ready.
Okay. So this is not something you could do while driving. So if you're driving, don't attempt this. Save this part for when you're in a safe, comfortable place and you can be seated, in a chair or on the floor. And the first, we're gonna start from the first chakra, so the sacral chakra down there, the root chakra. And so if you feel comfortable, you can put one hand on, on your very low back where you can feel your sacrum. And your front hand, you can just tap the floor or tap the chair, or you can actually put your hand, so that you can feel your pubic bone. I know that can be triggering depending on lots of things that have happened to us in childhood, but if you feel comfortable, do that. If not, just touch onto the floor so you can really feel rooted. And the sound that goes for balancing your root chakra is O. So we're just going to release the air and breathe in through the nose. Oh. Do it again. Oh. So your root chakra, it represents survival. The color is red. It's your blood, your life's blood. So your ancestry, your family of origin. So an energy vampire may be in your family of origin, which will make you more susceptible to them on the one hand, but also perhaps more discerning of their behaviors and more resilient toward their behaviors. So this is a two-sided coin here. This is a two-sided coin. Energy vampire behaviors, one of them is wedging. They may wedge between you and your support system. So if you do have a supportive family watch out for that tactic. Watch out for triangulation. Watch out for someone telling you that someone else said something about you. You don't want to believe that sort of thing. And you will feel it when someone's trying to do something like that to you, to knock you off your deepest connections and try to wedge between your deepest connections. You'll feel that. So let's say oh again for this chakra and just seal that knowledge in. Oh. And the second chakra, this is your low belly underneath the belly button. And, still sort of your sacrum, just a little bit higher. So if it feels comfortable to have one hand on each, the front and back, you can do that. If not, you just imagine this area. The color is orange, and your creativity is represented here. So creativity, obviously, your reproductive organs are here. So that kind of creativity, but also your creative pursuits. A really deep aspect of who you are is what you create in this world. A lot of what we create is still to come forward. We haven't brought it out of ourselves yet. And so taking care of this creative force and this chakra and acknowledging it is a really profound part of acknowledging who we are and our purpose here. The sound to balance this chakra is ooh. So we will let the air out with the lip trill and breathe in. Ooh. Ooh. When we are making ourselves available, allowing our energy to be siphoned off by an energy vampire personality, we are putting our creativity on the back burner. We are allowing other people to always come first. This is one of the beautiful things about us, that we are altruistic, that we have a sense of self-sacrifice in terms of taking care of the whole. But this can get out of balance with an energy vampire because there is no reciprocity. I'm getting the word wrong. Reciprocal. It's not reciprocal with the energy vampire. They cannot be satiated. And so your energy is not going anywhere where it will be returned or transmuted into something else. So beware of the energy vampire who makes unreasonable demands on your time and energy, who is depending on you to do everything for them. Beware of your tendency to allow yourself to be manipulated into overgiving. And this is a place yoga helps so much. It can help you fill your well, and it reiterates this concept of you need to give from an overflowing well, not from a drained well. Otherwise, you will have nothing left for your own creative endeavors. So we will sing a chant, ooh, again to seal in that knowledge. Ooh. The third chakra. This is your solar plexus area. So right underneath where your ribs meet. So above the belly button. And if you say ha, you'll feel it right there. Ha, ha. The color is yellow, and this area, it stands for how you show up in the world. How you show up in the world. And the sound is ah. So this area can be extremely affected by a relationship with an energy vampire, because part of what they are good at is putting you on a pedestal, but then right at the most necessary moment, uh, working to undermine your sense of self-esteem, your sense of accomplishment, these strange little naysayer ideas of how everything you've accomplished before really doesn't amount to much. And it's undermining of your confidence. So that is how an energy vampire relationship at work, at home, or within your family can affect you. It can affect the way that you feel confident to show up in the world. So you may begin to withdraw from the world, thereby losing more of your sense of support. So this area is a really good one to feel in touch with. And again, just ha, ha, you feel yourself come into your body. And this is an area that you want to embody. You do not want to vacate this area or the second or the third chakra. Coming into these chakras, let's just take a breath and imagine feeling like you are filling the red, orange, and yellow. And another breath coming into your body. The funny thing is, the more you can embody yourself, the less room there is for the energy vampire to place a hook into any of these chakras that they will use to siphon off your energy. So if you can get into your body, start to identify the first times that you vacated these portions of your body, you will start healing more and more and more. And you will start unhooking those energetic webs and sealing up those energy leakages. So the sound for this one is ah. And again, we'll just release the breath. Breathe in through the nose. Ah. Ah. Another thing that can happen with the solar plexus is that you have super traits of showing up in the world, like you are keeping everything together. These are the grade A students who at home do not have it so well, and so they are hyper functioning. They have super traits that make them seem to the outside world that they've got everything together, that nothing bad is happening to them. And it's just not always the case. So the solar plexus, you may be showing up in a really successful way in the outer world, but you may be you may have it a really different way in your inner world or behind closed doors, and that can also affect this chakra. So let's take one more breath and one more ah. Ah. And then moving up to the heart chakra. It becomes harder depending on your arm and shoulder flexibility to feel both the front and the back, but you can have one hand, one arm bent with your elbow above your shoulder, and then so, and that may not be comfortable for as long as we'll be here, so you can switch, or you just imagine, being aware of the back of your heart. So have your hands however is comfortable. You can have them both on the front of the heart, but just be aware that, oh, there is a back of the heart chakra. And it's an important place to balance. So this is the fourth chakra. This is the color green. Some people think of the high heart, this area here under the clavicles, as a pink sort of rose quartz color. So green, rose quartz, whatever works for you. Your heart. This is sort of the bridge between the lower chakras and the upper chakras. The heart, so many places of afference. We think sometimes the brain is in charge of the body, but actually I believe it's 80% from the gut, what we think of as our intuition, from our gut and digestion, and from the heart to the brain. So these nonverbal spaces in the body going to the brain, I find it the wisdom of your heart here. So there are a couple different sounds with the heart, but we'll be singing A. We'll be chanting A for the heart. So it goes from Ah, solar plexus, to A. So take a nice breath in, lip trill out, and another breath in before we chant. I think we know life feels simple and full and beautiful and expansive when our hearts are supported and healthy, and when this chakra is balanced. And as a nation with a lot of heart disease, with research that's showing that isolation affects heart health, loneliness, isolation, and stress, those are major indicators of your overall health, and they all affect your heart. I like that there's science supporting this now, that your quality of life, the quality of your friendships, how often you're able to feel in the company and supported by friends who really love you and understand you and have your best interest in their heart. These are all things that support your health, and not having them has detrimental effects to the health. And the energy vampire affects the heart, and this is why I mentioned the back of the heart, because while we are giving from the front of the heart, at some times we can feel stabbed in the back. So work here, approach it with love, with gentleness, with a real idea of reparenting the inner child, with a real idea of how you're going to build yourself up instead of tear yourself down. And just becoming more aware of the back body, of the spherical nature of your personal space, can do a lot. And the effects of sound can be very healing in this back of the heart space. You can do a couple shoulder rolls and bring your shoulders together in the space behind your back, just to bring awareness to that area. Also, on your back on a yoga mat or on a comfortable place, hugging your knees in and rocking back and forth, thinking about this area, getting blood flow to this area can be very healing. And the ways that the heart chakra can be affected by the energy vampire relationship is questions of heart health, questions of possibly shutting down your heart and your sense of openness to new experiences because it's taking everything you've got to try to protect your heart um, from someone with whom you don't have a reciprocal relationship. Part of you thinks it is, perhaps there's some cognitive dissonance here, but your heart knows, your body knows. And so listening to what the heart knows, it doesn't always give us the information we want. It's not always the easy information, but if you get quiet and you ask your heart about any particular decision that you're making in matters of the heart with an energy vampire, it can be very confusing because they may present in a romantic way as a twin flame, as a life partner, as, you know, the one who completes you. And so realizing perhaps that how they're presenting is not the way it truly is, that takes being open to your heart wisdom. And there's usually an aspect of betrayal, the back of the heart chakra, that needs to be addressed, sheltered, healed, protected. And ultimately, you know, your healing reaches the point where you don't need the protection anymore. So let's just keep an image of that hopefulness of, yes, shielding this area can be helpful for a certain time when you're in that survival mode, but eventually just remember that you will feel the sun on this space once again, even if you've had to numb yourself out of self-protection. Let's let it breath out and a breath back in. And moving to the throat chakra, you might just have both hands on the front or one hand in front, one hand in back. The color is blue. And when the throat chakra is balanced and open, we feel we are quick-witted, we are able to say what we're thinking, we are not second-guessing how we communicate. Things feel simple, free, easy. For singers, we have amazing range of the highs and the lows and resonance. And when the throat chakra is blocked because we're walking on eggshells around someone who's taking issue with the way we express ourselves, or is trying to control the words we use or trying to censor us, we can actually feel a physical pain in the throat. The physical pain of knowing there's something that must be said, but we are not safe saying it. It's a huge flag, huge red flag, huge indicator that that there's an energy vampire presence in our life. And when you're not scared to say what you need to say, that is an amazing feeling, and it's a feeling that feels very far from possible when you are giving a lot of your energy to an energy vampire. So the color is blue. The sound is E. The sound is E. Breath out. Inhale through the nose. E. When a relationship with an energy vampire has evolved enough that you no longer feel that you have free speech, that you feel scared talking about what's actually happening to you, that you are thinking that if you only had the magic words, that you could fix this relationship, that you could heal yourself, that you could heal the energy vampire. When you're in that place, your voice has been stolen from you. And regaining it, I just want you to know there is hope. It is possible. You can do it tiny step by tiny step, and you can make internal adjustments to reclaiming your voice that keep you safe, that do not escalate a dangerous situation. Just again, imagine this blue light and imagine that, there really is hope. You are still in there. Breath out, breath in. And then moving up to the sixth chakra, third eye chakra. The color is indigo, and this represents your third eye, your intuition. This is a place that can be blocked in a relationship with an energy vampire, or, this is also the place that personally I've felt a lot of cognitive dissonance, and that is a term for the very uncomfortable, untenable feeling of holding two truths at once, two conflicting truths at once. So, this can be really affecting. It can make you feel that your mental health is fragile when you are not listening to your intuition, when you're pushing down your intuition, or when you share your intuition and it is dismissed or minimized by others. There can be a feeling of real disconnect here. And when it's healthy, you have a sense of self-trust, of discernment, of knowing what is good for you and what is harmful to you, and being able to connect this intuition to the throat chakra to create your boundaries, to defend them, to communicate them. But when it's pretty advanced with an energy vampire, this may feel like a part of you that you don't trust, because your sense of your own intuition and your own wisdom may be being actively undermined. So the sound for this one is an M. It's a humming M. I'm sorry, it's an N or an NG sound. The M is the crown chakra. N or NG. We're going to do N for now. And you'll feel with the humming of the N, the creation of a visor of sound, a boundary, a shield around you. So let your breath out. Inhale. Don't be afraid to let it be nasal. That's the end of no. Okay. And the seventh chakra, this is the last one we will do in this exercise. That one is the M. This is the color violet. And this is the air around you. This is the space around you. This can represent the space that Michelle and I were discussing, the space that you can take between an outside situation, trigger, and your response to it. So this space can, be hijacked in an energy vampire relationship to where, they're laying bait for you and you take the bait without creating this space. So it's really so healing and such a step forward to remember this space around you. Remember the feeling of space around you and take a few breaths before you respond. Even if the breath is just to say, like Michelle said, I'm not ready to respond to this right now, but let's schedule a time. You are allowed to feel this space, to internalize this feeling of space between the trigger and the response. And you are allowed to feel safe within this space. And you are allowed to process your wisdom when you do not feel safe within this space and take steps to get to that safer space. So on an M, breath out with the lips, and then inhaling. Think not just of that space right in front of you, but also all around you, this sphere of space. So again, breath out. You should be allowed to be yourself, even when other people are around. You should be able to feel a sense of expansiveness around you, even when other people are around. And when you can't, and when you don't, is something to pay attention to. Let's do it one more time.
Lovely, lovely. Now that you have everyone zenned out, I had one thought before we bring everything to a close today, about the chakras, and a way to think about the chakras for people is that they have cycles, and those cycles come around every 7 years. So even though you may have thought, I dealt with this already, I don't understand why it's coming up again, and just to know that a different aspect of it comes up, all those qualities you just described in the chakras, a different way of exploring for you to find more of your power is to look at that next layer of the chakra. And if a situation does come up, it's your learning experience. So what does that layer look like? And then now, what power do you have, and how can you advance it? And how can it help you moving forward? So I just thought I'd bring that forward for people to think about, because the chakras are just so incredible, the gifts they have.
I agree. And just that idea of the two-sided coin, our best qualities can also be twisted, into qualities that can hurt us or cause anguish. But that anguish is something to look at, the feeling in each chakra, and I'm hurt. Maybe I'm having digestive issues. Maybe there's fertility issues. Maybe there's some issues that all have to do with that second chakra. And maybe it all comes down to you haven't been allowed to express your creativity. So it's like all of the negative symptoms can be a sign to what you said, empowering yourself. All of those symptoms, if you address them, might give you a springboard into a whole new higher quality of life where you're embracing your natural, innate, wonderful strengths and qualities. Yeah. So yeah, the pain, really following the pain and staying with it and looking for where it is in your body can give you a clue to the exact thing you need to do to heal it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Clancy, thank you so much for another lovely conversation and the eloquence with which you speak and the depth of introspection that you bring to a conversation. I love it. How can people connect with you, find you? And I know you had said there were some things on your blog post, so just give them those little clues.
Yes. Well, my main website is my name, and I think it's the easiest one to remember. So I'll give you that. It's Clancy Cox, ClancyCox.com. So clancycox.com. That is mostly for my singing things. The things that I am building, I will be connecting. You will be able to find them through that website. But yeah, I am building a website. It is called CC Cymatics. And cymatics are the study of the visible part of sound. So the way that sound changes the physical world and the visual representations of that. So CC is my name and cymatics. So that's what I'm starting. That's where the course will be hosted and the community will be hosted. But I am building that right now. But you'll be able to find it through clancycox.com.
Perfect. Excellent. All right. Any last words you'd like to share before we close up?
Oh, just that the exuberant, free, wonderful little kid energy that you might remember. If you are in an energy vampire relationship, it feels so far away. Simple joys feel so far away, but I just want to give you hope that you can find all of that joy and creativity and quality of life again. And there is resilience. There is post-traumatic resilience. And it sounds crazy, but it's true. I would not undo the things that happened to me. Even though they were unfair, not right, made me so angry, gave me huge feelings of not being safe and the world not being fair. All of that I would not undo because it has made me find strength I never knew I had. And it has changed my worldview into one with more compassion. And more connection with people. So I just want, he or she is still in there, You will find them again.
And those sparks are all the way along our lives. So to be able to find that little bit of fire within, yes. It's all along. Perfect. Clancy, thank you so much. And I wish you the best as you bring your new project forward, because it's going to reach and support so many people who I know are searching, trying to find that right piece. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you so much for allowing me to speak freely about it.
Awesome. Season 3, we're devoted to the transformational process that happens when people reach into their authentic selves and create magic. I think we just blew that out of the water today. Our season has several different focuses within the month, and these are all designed to help inspire you and empower you to consider living your true heart's desire with love and compassion at the forefront for others and at the forefront for yourself. Thank you for joining us. This is Be Well with Michelle Greenwell, wishing you well.